Okay, so this is now the fourth part of the training video. Here in this part, I will cover how you should tell people about the steps to prevent the spread of the coronavirus disease. Yeah. So first you show this slide, which shows that there are 7 steps, and then you say that you're going to be talking about 7 steps. But first you ask the audience to start telling what are the steps. Okay. And it's quite likely that they will tell you at least 5 or 6 of the steps. Okay. So once they've told you 5 or 6 of the steps that are listed here, then you say, okay, now that you have told the steps, we'll go to each step and we'll discuss it. And very importantly, we'll also discuss in each case why that step helps. Okay. So why we should do that. And so that will be an important part of your interactive aspect. So here in this particular session, you really need to interact a lot with people. And there will also be lots of queries, lots of doubts. So answer those and also ask people what they know. So having gotten a list from people of the different steps, so now we talk about the first step. So washing hands regularly with soap and water. Okay. Now here you need to ask people why they should wash hands. So then, somebody or the other will say that how by washing the hands, the virus goes away from the hand, then, and the hands become clean. So you say, okay, but so what? Then they will explain how if somebody has touched something and there is the virus on their hand, then when they wash, then their hands are clean. So then if they touch their eyes, nose, mouth, or if they touch other objects, they will not transfer the virus. So that is how washing hands helps. Then you ask them that, so just washing with water, is that enough? Does that help? And then explain how it is very important to wash with soap, not just with water. And you can explain this by saying how this coronavirus has a covering which is made up of fat. So this is like the oil or the ghee that we use at home. So there is this covering made of fat. And then you explain how, when you are cleaning dishes in which you have cooked and those dishes are oily, if you just wash it with water, the oil will not go. But if you wash it with soap, then the oil is removed. So similarly, if you wash your hands with soap, then that soap destroys that outer oil covering of the virus, and that means that the virus then cannot cause the infection. Also, when you use the water, it just sort of flows out. Okay. So this is a very important part to explain that you have to wash with soap. Okay. And then you also explain how to wash, because sometimes people just quickly wash and go off. But here you need to show how the hands have to be washed properly. So there's a video which we have. It is, if you're able to show that video, that is very good. If you're not able to do that, then you just explain how. The idea is that all the different aspects of the hand should be washed properly. So first you open the tap, take a little water, put soap, close the tap, otherwise you'll run out of water. And then first you wash in front nicely, rub nicely. Then you need to wash in between. So you wash the back of each hand, making sure you rub in between the fingers as well. Okay, that is important. Then you rub like this so that these front and back of the fingers also gets washed. Usually our thumbs don't get washed, so make sure then that these thumbs are washed. And then finally that the nails, you rub the nails and wash it properly. Okay, so these steps should be done. Basic idea being that all aspects of the hands are washed. Now there are different sort of things. Some people say wash for 20 seconds, some say for 40 seconds. Basically the point is that you should wash long enough to make sure that it is all parts are washed properly. Some people say that sing happy birthday 2 times. Okay, now here you can also ask what people think. Is it important to wash with soap and water or sanitizer? What is better? Now, some people may say sanitizer. A lot of people nowadays are aware that soap is enough. So then you explain how soap is more than enough. There is no need of sanitizer. The cheaper the soap, no problem. Any soap will do. Okay. So that is the important thing. Sanitizer is only to be used in hospitals by health personnel, or if you're going somewhere where there is no soap available, then maybe you can carry a small bottle of sanitizer with you. But otherwise, soap is perfectly fine. And it is important to also explain that because sanitizers are expensive, people just use 1 or 2 drops and then just rub it, and that's it. And that is not of any use. Just like the soap, you also need to use the sanitizer properly. So you need to fill the cup of your hand with the sanitizer and then use it all over. So they say usually with the sanitizer, you need to rub for about 20 seconds. With soap, they say about 40 seconds. Okay, but the point in all these things is that all the surfaces has to be washed properly. Okay, so this is important. Here, remember, you're stressing soap, stressing that you have to wash it for an adequate length of time and wash properly. Now, you also need to explain to people and use this as an opportunity to, emphasize on normal hygienic practices. So here you tell them that it is important to wash, and how many times? About 5 to 6 times a day. They find that if you wash, that really decreases the risk of coronavirus. Okay, especially when you go out, tell people they should wash their hands and go, so that then when they touch things, they don't transfer any virus. And when they come back home, immediately wash your hands. Okay, but apart from this, also ask them that now this is because of coronavirus we are stressing, but what about normally, normal hygienic practice? What are the 4 important times that people are anyway supposed to wash their hands? You ask your audience, usually they will answer. So one by one, you will get the answer. But otherwise, list the 4 times when it is very important. One is to wash your hands before you eat your food. Now, this is to prevent other kinds of germs which go into our body, which can cause diarrhea. So we are supposed to wash our hands anyway when we eat our food. Second thing related to that, when we cook or prepare any food, before that. Third, after you go to the toilet. Fourth, related to that, when you clean up the baby's toilet or the child's toilet, okay, when you wash them, or if you take their stool and dispose it. So these are the 4 important times that it needs to be done. So this is just a time where you can emphasize this hygienic practice of washing hands. Now, you also need to tell here that people might wonder whether if I have touched the soap and somebody else touches the soap, is that okay? So that is perfectly all right, because that soap, as I said, even if some virus remains on it, because of the soap, the fat of the virus gets destroyed and the virus is inactive. So that's perfectly fine. Also, as a good practice, you can tell people that when they are washing their hands, just to also wash the tap with a little bit of soap, so that when you close it, you're not having washed your clean hands and then you touch a tap which has got some germs on it. There's no point. Make sure you wash the tap also properly, and then in the end, when you close your hand, then that's fine. Okay. Now, there might be certain areas, depends on where you're giving this talk. If you're giving it in areas where there are slum areas or crowded areas where people may not have running water, they might be using a bucket and a mug. So there's a video which we have which shows how, in a very simple way, you can construct a kind of what is called a tippy tap, where you press with your leg and water falls, so that you don't have to touch, and without touching you can use, so that the idea of contacting and lifting things and all is not there. So if you have a way of doing that, you can show that video, or you can explain to people if you feel the circumstances are such that they need to set up such stations for hand washing. Also, in case you are in a place where people use public toilets, then there again you need to explain to them that because multiple people might be using the toilets, and then it is very important to wash your hands anyway after using a toilet. But if there are taps there, there are no taps there, then it might be a good idea to set up one of these hand washing things outside, so that without touching, people are able to wash their hands. Other possible queries. Sometimes people are worried that this repeated washing. Now people are fed up of washing their hands. Yeah, so it's causing dryness, soreness. So you can just suggest applying some coconut oil in the night, which acts as a good moisturizer. So that is one query which people may have. Then people may also have queries about handling things. That we keep washing hands, but what about things? So here you can tell them, like, if you go out and if you buy some things, then you don't need to, immediately, it's better not to use things immediately, because the packaging, the things, they might have things on them. So even if you bring things from outside, just best is you keep them aside for a day and use the things next day, because as I said, the virus doesn't live for a long time. After a few hours, it starts getting inactivated. So if you buy anything, just bring it, leave it aside for a day or so, and then use it the next day. Okay. Now, if there are things which need to be put in the fridge, then when you bring it, you just put it in a cloth bag, and then so that it's not touching the fridge all over the place. And then again, you put the bag in the fridge and then use it the next day. Okay. And as much as possible, try to buy things in advance so that you can use them the next day. Okay. Now, in case you brought some vegetables and you really need to use it that day, and try to keep it for a few hours. But if you have to use it, then wash it properly, and after you cut it and all that, you just make sure you wash your hands, and you're cooking it. So cooking destroys any virus. WHO has clearly, they say that cooked food does not result in transmission of the virus. So there's no need to be worried about that. And there's no need to be like so worried that, when you bring back all your vegetables and fruits, you have to take each tomato and wash it with a brush or Dettol. There is no need to do that. Okay. As I said, try to just buy things in advance and keep them aside and use after overnight is better, or after a few hours. So that is about worries about things. Sometimes people also have worries about milk packets, so that you can say that because those have to be used the same day. So you just wash those. That's just a plastic packet anyway. Just wash it with soap, and then you can just cut it, open it, and use it and throw away the packet. Anyway, it's washed with soap. Okay. So these are some queries you may face. So that is about washing your hands uh, properly and giving people the main message that if they wash regularly 5 to 6 times, the risk of passing the infection to themselves is greatly reduced. Or even touching other parts and passing the infection onto things which other people touch. So basically, it prevents the spread of the disease. So that is about the first step, washing hands. Now you move to the next step. So the next step is avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth, because that is the point, those are the points, the T zone through which the virus can enter into the body. Now, at this point, at the start, we had mentioned in the first video how you get people who have some dark masks or dark clothes to put their fingers into this powder. Now, here you will see that, even the facilitators who are helping you, if they've touched, you will find that some of them, there will be white marks on the mask or in the clothes. And at this point, you can point out to them how, this shows that we are not conscious and we keep touching our eyes, nose, mouth, and that powder can go from your hands to all over the place. So similarly, the germs can move everywhere, and why it is important for us to uh, prevent ourselves or be conscious. Like I just touched my nose, but now I'm a bit conscious. So be conscious and not touch very often. Try to reduce the number of times you touch. Now, I've already explained why, but you can ask people why, and then how when you touch, if there is some germs on your hands, then they will enter in. So it is better not to touch as much as possible. Avoid touching these parts. So that is the second step. Now the third step. Now this has been talked about a lot, so people know quite a bit about it. So here you can ask people, first of all, ask them, why? Why should you maintain this distance between each other? And then you can also demonstrate. So you and the other person who is with you, you can just stand from each other, or you can stand far maybe, and then those tiny pieces of paper that you have with powder. So if the person is standing far from you, another make them stand, and then you just stand and then you just throw those pieces of paper and powder, and you'll see that they'll just go out and they'll fall down. They won't fall on that person. Now you call that person close to you, and then they're standing in front of you, both of you have masks. Now you throw it and you'll see that those pieces of paper powder, they fall on that person, and the audience also sees, and that very nicely demonstrates why you should be far from each other, because otherwise these droplets can go directly on that person when you're coughing or sneezing, or even, as we said, in case you are asymptomatic but having the virus, your droplets when you're talking can also pass to other people. So that is an important point. Okay, so this explains why. Now, at a practical level, how do we do this? So then you ask people, what is the distance that you should be far from each other? Now, somebody will say 1 meter, somebody will say 2 meters. So you say that, people say different things, 1 meter, 3 feet, 6 feet. But the point is that you have to be far enough, because as you saw, if you're near, then droplets will fall on you. If you're far, droplets cannot just remain in the air. As you saw, they are heavy, and like the paper, they go up and then they fall down. Okay. So if you are far, then there is no risk of them falling on you. And a practical way of doing this is just stretch out hands on all sides, front, side, and make sure you're not touching anybody. Okay, so you're far enough, and that is definitely far enough so that droplets won't fall on you. Now, at a sort of day-to-day level, how to do this? So things like, if you're going grocery shopping, then you tell people try to go at a time when there are lesser people. Don't go at timings which are crowded. If you go to a shop and you find there are many people inside, better not to go. Go at some other time. Then you try to also, you know, make a list of things you want to buy and go less frequently so that you're not exposed. Go fewer times to the shops and then just buy things all together. So that is better. So there are some practical things you need to do to make sure that you're not caught in areas where there are too many people. So other questions maybe. Okay, also about maintaining distance from each other if somebody comes to the house. So if you have visitors, then it's better to talk to them outside rather than inside if it's possible. Like if you have a garden or if you're having a small outer space or a balcony, because being outside is always better. Remember, and being far is always better than closer. We're not going to measure distances with a tape, but just remember that the further, the better, and being in an open environment is better. Okay. Then sometimes people ask you, like when they saw the pieces of water, paper falling on the floor, that these droplets fall on the floor. So, from the floor, can that virus then spread? So basically, this is also your opportunity to explain to people that spitting is a very bad habit, and by spitting, a lot of germs can spread, like the coronavirus, like tuberculosis. So germs can spread through spit, but at the same time, it's not going to move up by itself or anything like that. And in case your spit fell and there is an infection in it and somebody steps on it, then it can be on the sole of the foot. But basically, when you go home, just remove your slippers outside, and the chances of you touching the sole of your foot and then touching your nose and eyes are very less. So there's no need to worry that much. Just keep your footwear out and remind people that they should not be spitting, and that is a bad habit. Okay. So basically, now in this third thing, the important message here is to keep adequate distance to prevent droplets falling on you. Don't go in places where you see too many people, where it's not possible to maintain that distance. So that is the main message. Okay. Then linked to this is the next one, which is avoid crowds and gatherings. Okay. So you ask people why, and basically because if you're in a crowd, then you're not able to maintain a social distance. And there may be people around you, then you cannot do anything about it. So it's better not to go in a place which is crowded, like going to feasts or going to certain fairs or performances. So it's better now not to have celebrations, not to go in places where you cannot make sure that you are far from people. Because you never know, in that crowd there might be people who are not coughing, sneezing, but they might still have the virus, and that can spread. Okay. So this is a important thing linked with the social distancing. Now, sometimes people ask questions about whether, when they go out and they come back, whether they should have a shower, whether they should change their clothes. So it depends. Like if you go out and you've not met many people, you've been far enough, you've not interacted with too many people, then that's fine. But you've gone in a place which is crowded and there's a risk that, there have been a lot of people around you and things like that, then you can come back home and have a shower and put your clothes to wash. But otherwise, you can just come back and, if you change your clothes also, you can just keep them in one part, and you can also use them afterwards, because as I said, clothes and newspapers and things like that last for very few hours, and there's no need to worry. Now that I mentioned newspapers, some people may have queries about that also, whether they should get the newspaper. So again, if first of all it is all done in the factory, so not anybody is touching, but then the person who's bringing it may be touching a bit. So you can advise that if the paper comes in the morning, just leave it for a few hours, and then maybe you can read it in the evening. So there's no problem about that. Okay, especially paper and clothes, the virus is known to last for few hours. So there's no need to stop your daily newspaper. So that is about the avoiding the crowds and gatherings. Now we go to the next one, which is step number 5, and that is an important one, which is something everybody will know, which is about wearing a mask. Okay, so you ask people now again, why a mask? And you will get lots of answers. And the main answer will be that, somebody will say that your droplets will not fall out, but then there will be lots of people who will also say that you will not get the infection. Other people's will droplets will not fall on your nose, eyes. Okay. So now this is an important point to explain that there needs to be a clear understanding about this. When we wear a mask, the main thing that happens when we wear a mask is it prevents our droplets when we cough, sneeze, or talk falling on other people. So the mask protects other people. Okay. But if droplets fall from other people on us, even if we are wearing a mask, although the chances are reduced a bit, we can still get infection. Or if I touch my hand in a place which is contaminated by the virus, and then I touch my mask, the infection can still go inside and cause coronavirus disease. So this is very important because sometimes people think that if they wear a mask and they go out, they can go anywhere, they can go in a crowd, they can do what they want, and they are not going to get the disease. So this is very important, okay, to explain this, that the mask is protecting other people around you, okay? And even if you're wearing a mask, you can still get the disease. So it is very important to also do other things like washing your hands, not touching repeatedly, social distancing. Okay, so this is very important message. Um, and also then you can say that, when you are having people around you and if they're not wearing, then you can nicely tell them to wear a mask, because if they wear a mask, you are protected. Okay. Then now you can also have a discussion about the type of mask. Just like we asked about soap and sanitizer, ask people what mask do they think needs to be worn. So some people will say some medical mask and N95 and things like that, yeah. Or some will say cloth mask. So then you explain that generally for general public, basically it is any face covering which has 2 layers. So it can even be a handkerchief, it can be a dupatta. But the important thing is that it should be clean, it should be worn properly. Okay, so make sure you wash your hands before you wear, because if you're going to use contaminated hands to touch the mask and then wear it, it's like putting the germs on your face. Okay, and keep hands clean, tie it properly, and then also very important, when you remove the mask, don't touch the front, because other people's droplets have fallen or something, or your own droplets have come on it, and then you will touch somewhere else. So you remove the mask from the behind, and then immediately when you come home, we said wash your hands, same time wash your mask. And the mask you wear should be clean, should be dry. So try to keep 2 masks, so that when you mask wash one and then it's drying, and then you have a particular spot in the house where you keep this mask, so that you don't basically uh, it doesn't get dirty. Keep it in a nice place, or you have a small packet in which you keep it. And basically if you have 2 masks, then that is very important. Okay. So other things about masks. So if they are cotton, they are good. That's fine. Medical masks don't need to be worn by ordinary people. N95 masks are normally used by doctors in hospitals, because where there is a risk of them interacting with people who are sick, and those masks protect the other person from the person who's wearing the mask from getting the disease also. Okay, but if those are not reusable, they last for a few hours, and they have to be changed every day. Okay, so it's not practical for regular public to use those masks. So for us, normally you can use cloth masks, but the important thing is how they're used. They're clean, they're not kept here and there. And also a lot of people, what they do when they wear the mask, they just, they remove it down and they keep it hanging here. Now what happens with that? Anything which comes from somebody's coughing, sneezing, that falls on that mask, and then they take it and then they wear it. That is like taking the germs and putting it on your face. Okay, so it's important not to leave it hanging like that. Wear it properly. Also, a lot of people when they're talking, it means quite natural. They think that, oh, the other person may not hear, or it's a bit uncomfortable talking. So when they're talking, they remove the mask. And that is the time when you actually need the mask. Okay? So that is an important thing to remember. The other thing is that just like normally, even when you wear a mask, it is important not to keep touching your eyes, nose, mouth, because again, any contamination on your hand, it can go in, and through the mask, it can go in, as we explained. Okay, so that is an important aspect of uh, wearing a mask and not touching as well. So with regard to any questions related to masks, I think this has basically covered it. Okay, one thing is that in case of people who are in sort of physically demanding jobs like say construction work and things like that, it's important to address this. They find it really difficult to wear a mask and they can't work when they're wearing a mask. There you can explain that if you're not able to breathe, then maybe you can at least just cover your mouth, or in any case outside, you can maintain distance from each other. At least wear a mask when you're talking. And being outside is one of the best things, which is why even when the lockdown is lifted, one of the first things to start is construction work. Okay, so explain to people that if they find it difficult, then they should at least make sure they're outside and far from each other. And when they're talking to each other and nearby, then they should wear the mask. Okay, so that is an important thing. Um, and Yeah, about certain people who cannot breathe easily and have some difficulties with breathing. So again, children below 2 years old or people who have some difficulties, then there's no need for them to wear a mask. Children below two, no need to wear. And people who have difficulties, then again, they can at least, just cover their mouth when they're talking and maybe not cover their nose if they find it difficult to wear. So these are some practical questions you may have. Okay, so that is about the mask. Then now we come to point number 6 and 7. Okay, so the sixth one, these 2 points are mainly related to if somebody is not well. Okay, so basically the important thing is about coughing and sneezing in such a way that droplets don't spread all over. So the best way to do that is to do it in your sleeve. Okay, because you're not going to touch here and then touch. It's very unlikely. Okay, so in your sleeve, and even if you cough or sneeze in your hand, then that also prevents it spreading. But then make sure you wash your hands with soap and water after that. Or if you cough in your handkerchief, keep your handkerchief in your pocket. Don't keep it here and there, because that can again make the droplets go here and there. And again, why to do this? Because otherwise the droplets will go on people who are near you or on things. Okay, so that is one step which needs to be taken to prevent spread. And this is very important because this is especially in case of people who are not well and coughing, sneezing. Okay, so they can spread the virus quite a lot. Then the last step is if you're not well, then you don't, why should you stay at home? Because you don't want to go out, don't want to mix with people, don't want to spread the virus. So this is a very important thing. If you're not feeling well, you have any of these symptoms which we've talked about, especially fever or dry cough, tiredness, and mainly those, or even if you have other things like maybe a sore throat, cold, because nowadays you can have these other symptoms as well. Then the important thing is not to go out, not to mix with other people, and be in the house. And in the next section, we'll talk about what to do if you are not well. So more elaboration on that. But the end of this section, you need to now again, once more you go through all the 7 steps. Again, you ask people or you summarize saying what are the 7 steps to prevent the spread. Okay, and that ends our section on what to do to prevent spread.